A vital part of your journey through the VOTE program is the VOTE textbook. The good news is, it's a free educational resource. You can read it online or download the PDF without spending a penny. If you prefer a print book, you can buy the 2 volumes at cost. The other good news is that the book is accessible to people who know absolutely nothing about economics and those who know a lot but haven't studied it from multiple perspectives. I promise that you won't be bored. It's filled with relatable stories, jokes, exercises, activities, and food for thought. Let's take a tour of the book so you can navigate it easily and find what you need. The book is divided into 3 parts. Part 1 is background, where we set the stage and give you a quick introduction to economics and the different perspectives you'll be learning. Chapter 1 describes the value of studying economics from alternative points of view. You'll be introduced to the VOTE program, and you'll find the very important VOTE ballot. Your first vote will give you a baseline of your opinions before your journey into the program gets underway. Then later, you'll vote for a second time. That happens after you've explored each issue from opposing points of view. In chapters 2, 3, and 4, you'll learn about the power of defining basic economic concepts. You'll discover that there are different ways of thinking about thinking, and then you'll find an overview of the history of economic thought. By chapter 5, you're ready to learn the foundations of conventional theory. It's the economic approach that applies to both conservatives and liberals. They share a chapter here because they agree on theory, but as you'll learn, they disagree about policy. Then chapter 6 gives you the foundations of radical theory. Throughout the book, you'll notice there's a color code that signifies each perspective. Green is for radical, red is for conservative, and blue is for liberal. When we're discussing conventional theory, we also use the color purple, mixing blue for liberal and red for conservative. Once you've finished absorbing the background, it's time for the centerpiece of the book, the issues. The first 2 issues, agriculture and product safety, share the same tools of analysis, so you'll read about their tools in chapter 7. The next 2 issues, livelihood and housing, also share the same tools. Those are found in chapter 10. These first 4 issues use simple tools that are just a step away from the foundations presented in chapters 5 and 6. On the other hand, the remaining 8 issues require unique and more complex tools. So chapters 13 through 20 are substantially longer. Each opens with a story and general information to help you connect to the issue on a personal level. After that, you'll find a section called Expanding the Models. It includes a shared tool, followed by the conventional and radical theory tools. It's in this section that you'll take a deep dive into the policies that each perspective proposes to solve the issue. After you complete expanding the model, it's time for the discussion story. These are accounts of events that really happened and that relate to the issue in some central way. Later in the chapter, all 3 perspectives will address the discussion story from their particular points of view. This way, you can make an apples-to-apples comparison of their different approaches. Following the discussion story, you'll have an opportunity to learn about the facts, figures, historical background, and definitions that are necessary to have a nuanced grasp of the issue. With all of this under your belt, you're now ready to experience the beating heart of the VOTE program, the voices. In rotating order, you'll read first-person monologues from the radical, liberal, and conservative perspectives. It's like you're hearing someone with that point of view talk to you about the issue you just learned about. After each monologue, you'll find a summary page for quick review. And the last part of the voices includes 8 talking points. These are statements meant to be read out loud. Reading the talking points earnestly, even when you don't agree with those ideas, gives you valuable practice speaking from each perspective. Please notice the colored ribbons that run down along the outside margins of the voices. The colors are there to remind you which perspective you're reading. That's why the voices sections are also called the ribbon pages. Here's a tip that will serve you well. All the monologues, summaries, and talking points follow the same basic structure. First, they advocate for their perspective. Then they critique the other two perspectives, and they finish up with their policy proposals. Knowing this is incredibly useful. For example, if you're looking for a positive statement about your assigned perspective on an issue, you can find it in paragraphs 1 through 3 of the monologue, and then again under the big picture in the summary, and yet again in the first 2 talking points. In addition to all this, there are videos you can watch of actors delivering impassioned versions of the monologues. But please know, the videos don't include all the stories and interesting turns in the arguments, so it's important to also read the ribbon pages. An activity follows each of the Voices sections. We treat the first 4 issues a little differently. For those, you'll be assigned to represent a perspective for a debate, role play, skit, or poster presentation. For the other 8 issues, you'll do a 3-in-1 activity where you assume the role of a character in a given scenario. You start from a neutral perspective and identify the problem. Then you stay in character and rotate through all 3 perspectives, solving the problem each time. Once again, you get to compare apples to apples, but this time through an activity. After you complete each issues chapter, you'll go back to your original vote ballot and vote a second time on that issue. In this way, you'll be able to track whether you changed your mind a little or a lot, or became even more convinced about your original vote. At the very end of these chapters, the Test Yourself section lets you review what you learned. And you can also review the key terms that came up in the chapter. Finally, you'll arrive at Part 3 of the Vote textbook. Chapter 21 is a short chapter, but in so many ways, it's the most crucial chapter in the book. Why? Because it's about the end game of vote, inspiring new ideas to solve our urgent economic problems. One last thing. At the back of the book, you'll find a very useful map. It's there to help you navigate the book and locate everything else you need. You can think about it as a very detailed table of contents. I hope you enjoy the Vote textbook. It's dedicated to the great economic thinkers of tomorrow. We're waiting for you.